Greetings, philosophers! Today we try something a little bit different. We are going to go through the philosophy present in a famous work of art, and on this occasion it's Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, which is one of my favourite novels. And to help me in this endeavour, I am joined by John, the Lit-Crit guy, a literary and cultural critic from the 21st century.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, absolutely my pleasure. John is a Twitter literary critic, aren't you? You dispense literary criticism.
The first one ever, I think. Mainly because no other literary theorist has ever had the balls to try it.
Never tried to do literary criticism.
140 characters at a time.
So we should probably start by telling people what the novel is about. Brave New World is set in a futuristic society in which everybody is pretty much happy all of the time. Right?
Yeah, basically what happens is there's been some kind of colossal amount of war, and society has been completely reorganised to be... people are conditioned from birth and before to be perfect and always happy little productive members of this new global society.
Yeah, and there's 5 castes of society and everybody's totally happy to be in every caste. There's no pain or heartbreak or loneliness because everyone's encouraged to have promiscuous sex with each other all the time, and there's no monogamy. There's a drug called Soma which the government gives out, and if you ever feel sad you can just take that. So, I mean, it's set in a society in which everybody is happy all of the time.
The novel is a reflection of a broader trend within early 20th century literature, and this is the rise of the dystopia. Let me explain. For the longest time, we believed that culturally we were going on an upward trajectory from being savages to being civilized people. The world was slowly becoming more rational, more reasonable, more scientifically advanced, more technologically sophisticated. But by the turn of the 1900s, people began to experience certain anxieties about this ideological set of beliefs. The world had changed so rapidly that writers especially began to explore the possibility of what would this new world look like and what would we be like when we finally got there. Perhaps the best example of this is the great 1895 novel by H.G. Wells, The Time Machine, where our brave scientist travels hundreds upon thousands of years into the future and finds humanity split into 2 different, divided, monstrous races. The point I'm trying to make is that just over 20 years later from the publication of Wells' novel, the world would see for the first time the horrible efficiency of technology in World War I. During the 20s, we saw the Great Depression, the first run on the Bank of England, and the collapse of the national government. For the first time, it seemed that what the world really wanted wasn't sophistication or civilization, but stability. With another war brewing in Europe and this cultural juggernaut showing absolutely no sign of slowing down, it's not really enough to read Huxley's novel as some kind of philosophical thought exercise. Huxley was concerned, and this novel is a direct and blistering attack on the world that he was living in.
So, we've got a society in which everybody is happy, and that's why I think that the book is a great way to learn about the philosophical view called utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is the broad philosophical view which says that what is good is that which maximises utility, where utility is usually defined as happiness and the avoidance of unhappiness. And it comes in different flavours, but the flavour that Brave New World most clearly embodies is Jeremy Bentham's. Bentham defined utility as pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Now, the world state certainly has a lot of pleasure. There's regular orgies and a lot of drugs, and if those seem like kind of shallow pleasures, well, everyone is conditioned to not really want anything more out of life. But we are still led to believe that there might still be something wrong with this. The protagonist of the novel, Bernard Marx, is somehow dissatisfied with all this constant happiness, and when a deuteragonist named John the Savage, who lives outside the world state on a savage reservation, is introduced, he is very, very uncomfortable with the constant happiness and pleasure of the world state citizens. The Savage ends up being very openly critical of the world state. He has a discussion with another character named Mustafa Mond towards the end of the book, and that's the bit where the philosophy is most easily teased out. The Savage tells Mustafa that there are deeper and more important pleasures to be had than just sex, drugs and rock and roll. The examples he provides are the pleasures of religion, philosophy and high art, and in this way we can see the character of the Savage outlining the sort of utilitarianism advocated by John Stuart Mill. Mill was utilitarian, but he thought there were higher and lower pleasures, and higher ones counted for more. So, the higher pleasure of listening to a Mozart symphony counts for more than the lower pleasure of having a beer. Mustafa doesn't buy it, however. He says, look man, everybody's happy all of the time. You could even go and ask them and they'll tell you, nah bro, we don't want anything more out of life. Why do we need philosophy and high art and religion? Those things are just reactions to unhappiness. And there is no unhappiness. The world state in Brave New World is capital B Benthamite utilitarian.
Here's my first theoretical point. Whilst we might claim that everyone in Brave New World is actually happy, there's something about this kind of Benthamite utilitarian happiness that makes it a deeply unethical category. When the Savage is talking at the end of the novel, he isn't just being some kind of cultural snob. He's not saying that instead of all of this sex and the drug-taking, people should be doing something better, but rather he's saying that there's something degrading about all of this pleasure. Instead of wanting people to do nicer things, he's saying that all of this pleasure has taken something integral to their humanity away from them. As a side note, this is probably why it's so important that the Savage spends so much of the novel quoting Shakespeare. Shakespeare is held up as the kind of epitome of what a cultural and literary history can do. As Samuel Johnson puts it in his introduction to the collected works, there is always a silent reference of human works to human abilities, and as the inquiry how far man may extend his design or how high he may rate his native force is of far greater dignity than in what rank we shall place any particular performance. Curiosity is always busy to discover the instruments as well as to survey the workmanship, to know how much is to be ascribed to original powers and how much to casual and adventitious help. What Johnson is arguing is that we want to know that someone like Shakespeare could happen. We want to know that we could create something bigger and better than ourselves. As the Savage argues at the end of the book, the world of Brave New World has taken this potentiality away from us. We're no longer capable of creating anything significant. To quote the novel, "Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. But you do neither suffer or oppose. It's all too easy."
There's another philosophical angle to consider here. At the end of the book, the Savage decides that all this happiness in the world state is fake, it's engineered, it's simulated, it's not real happiness. Now, Mustafa denies this, but it relates to an important philosophical thought experiment by Robert Nozick. Nozick tried to criticize utilitarianism by imagining a virtual reality machine that you could plug into and it would simulate a maximally happy life for you and then erase your memories of going into the machine so that you wouldn't know it was fake. It stimulates your brain in certain ways to make you think you're having all these amazing happy experiences, but actually you're not. Would you choose to enter the machine? If your answer is no, as the Savage's ultimately is, then that means there must be things that are more important in life than just pleasure. But Mustafa Mond and the citizens of the world state would say, yeah man, why not? Happiness is happiness.
The second, and maybe the most important point I want to make, is that Brave New World should have us all deeply, deeply concerned. What should worry us about the novel is that when the Savage tries to cause a revolution and tries to create something better, it fails, not because it's against the rules, but because the people that exist there can no longer understand or conceive of what he's trying to tell them. The great theorist and historian Michel Foucault proposed that all civilized societies lay down what he called disciplinary procedures. Now, these are the discursive practices every society has to make its citizens into subjects, through its institutions like families, like schools, universities, religion, the police, the armed forces. Rules are laid down, and certain behaviours don't just become illegal, they become impossible to think of. What should concern us is what happens when a society accepts these rules without question, and that's what we see in Brave New World. To create a new world, to imagine a new way of living, it isn't just something that can't be done, it's something that can no longer be thought of.
So, that's the philosophy of Brave New World. Not just a great way to learn about utilitarianism, but also a critique of it, really, and a warning. That's all we've got time for in this very special episode. Thank you, John, for joining me. It's
An absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Be sure to check out John's new YouTube channel when it starts and his incredible literary criticism Twitter feed. You can get all of your literary criticism needs satiated there, and you can become a philosopher for all of your philosophy needs. To all my regular fans, if you enjoyed this format of going through a famous work of art and examining the philosophy in it, then let me know. We could potentially do more of that. I get more experts in. That might be fun. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye.